So back in the mid 80s and early 90s, independent gaming stores were the place for me to go to get my gaming needs. When I got into gaming, I would go around to Kmart's, the Targets, the Big W's, even I think it was Tandy here in Australia, which is kind of like Radio Shack in America, I think. But I found those prices to be really high. And as gaming got more popular, you would see these smaller independent gaming stores starting to pop up here in Brisbane. And the ones that I remember, because I used to work in the Brisbane CBD, there was three that really stood out for me. One at the top of the Queen Street Mall, which was a massive store. When you walked in there, it just seemed to go forever, what I remember of it. And it was wall to wall PC games. You go in, walk past all of this PC stuff, and you go down to this small section where it was Sega and Nintendo. I don't really remember too much of the Nintendo stuff at that stage. I was hooked on the Sega stuff, and this is going back towards the beginning of the life cycle of the Mega Drive. I think, yeah, the Mega Drive. So there was another store in this Queen Street Mall, halfway down, right next to Hungry Jack's. You had to walk downstairs into a basement, into this other small store. And at the other end of the Queen Street Mall, I think where the Douglas MacArthur Chambers were, just across the road from there was another new mall. And there was another small independent game store there. And that would be the place I would go to trade in my Master System and the vast majority of the games, so I could get a Super Nintendo, and I think it was Super Mario Brothers and A Link to the Past. I ended up regretting that a lot a little bit later on, but that's just the way it was. But those were the three that really stood out in the CBD, the Brisbane CBD for me. Later on, I would see in the suburbs on the north side. I used to live on the north side of town of Brisbane. I would see these family-owned independent gaming stores starting to open up. The one that really stood out for me was up at Luckridge. It was run by a couple, a married couple, and they had a worker in there. The couple was Ian and Jane, and I think the one of their employees I talked to a lot was Shane. And that would be the place I would go to get my games. It was local. Even though I worked in the city, I just, after I finished work in the city, I just wanted to get out of there and get back home. And it would be one of my favorite places to go. Have some long discussions with Ian or Shane. It was really cool back then. You could spend 2 hours in there just chatting away, talking about games and the latest releases and what's happening. And that's where I would learn about Sony didn't know how to classify or categorize the original PlayStation, so they put it in with the battery catalog category. So Ian was the one that told me that. And it was really funny to learn that they used to sell a lot of video games to the prisons within the Brisbane area. I think it was Bugger Road Jail, and I think it was the Waco Correctional Centre, which kind of really shocked me. But there was really a lot of restrictions to what games the prisoners could order, and I think they were only getting paid like $7 a week, so they had to save up a lot of money to get a game. They couldn't buy any games with gambling. I remember that, and none with violence, so there was no GTAs or anything like that. I can just imagine hardened prisoners playing Yoshi's Island or something like that. But I would learn all this sort of stuff, and also you would kind of get to know the different reps. Sega reps mainly. I didn't see much of the Nintendo reps, but you got to know them as well, which was really cool. And there was another independent gaming store down at Strathpine, or Aspley. It was owned by a husband and wife in the mid 40s, late 40s, I think. It was mainly PC stuff, but you could. What was the really beauty of that was back then there was no eBay. Okay, we had the trading post. It's kind of like dodgy sometimes selling stuff in the trading post, but you could take your used games into them, and you register it at the counter with them. They would take a certain percentage of the cut. They would actually put your used games on display on the shelves, and yeah, if they sold, they would keep a percentage, and you would get what you were asking for. So I would sell some PC games over the time, some Mega Drive games as well I didn't want. It was a really good way to do that without having to go through the whole trading post thing. And there was another store that really stood out for me. It was a grey import store here in Brisbane. It was over at Roddy Road, Chermside. The owner was Andrew Bergen, and that would be the place I would go to see the Japanese Mega Drive, the Super Nintendo, the Japanese Super Nintendo, the PC Engine, Turbo Graphics, the Nero Geo, all of that stuff, the Lynx as well. That would be the place I would go to see all that sort of stuff that most of it never got released here. We got the Mega Drive, we got the Super Nintendo, and that was about it. We didn't get the PC Engine, all those sort of things, but it would be the place to go for me to get my grey import fix. He would later move down to Luckridge Road, I think it was. You couldn't miss his store. It was along the main road. It had this massive Sonic the Hedgehog painted on the window. So you knew who it was. TV Game Repairs, I think it was called. TV Console Games Repaired, I think he called that. But I do remember when he was over at Roddy Road that his store got broken into. I saw one of the Last Gamers episodes where he was talking about his grey import store got broken into as well. And kind of like, wow, that's really strange coincidence to see both of these grey import stores, even though one's here in Queensland, one was down in Melbourne, I think it was, getting broken into. And both of them were actually served some sort of letters from Nintendo saying you couldn't sell any more games in Australia or they'll take you to court. So that was a real bummer, but actually Andrew actually sold them under the counter. If I wanted anything, he would get it for me, which was really cool. Now, it was great times back then. Going into these stores, having real conversations with them. You didn't get that sort of stuff in the Kmarts and the Big W's, Targets. There was no way you're going to get that sort of thing. And the demise of the family-owned import, stores, the family-owned businesses, was to do mainly, I think in 1997, EB Games came here in Australia. They had that great offer, if 7-day money-back guarantee. So I know that sort of hurt a lot of the other stores, but I think it was because the Howard government was bringing in the Liberal government was bringing in the GST on the 1st of July 2000, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was 2000 or 2001. And I remember going into the store where Ian, the owner was, and we're talking about the GST, and he actually said to me that when that GST hits, we're closing our store. And I got that from a lot of the other independent gaming stores. They just were so scared of the GST, and they thought it was going to be so hard to work out that overnight, virtually overnight here in Brisbane at least, on the 1st of July, I think it was 2000 or 2001, whatever it was, they pretty much shut their doors. The vast majority of the independent gaming stores that we had here in Brisbane. The only independent gaming store I know of, I think, is down in Sydney, the Gamesman. They've been around for forever, I think. I'd love to go down there because they've got a museum inside their store. But because of the GST, virtually overnight, at least here in Brisbane, all of the independent gaming stores just closed down. And that was like an end of an era for somebody like me, who was, always wanted to go and have a discussion, talking about stuff. They looked after you. They really did back then. It was like a real friend atmosphere there. You got to know these people. You don't really get that with EB Games anymore. I feel. I remember back in the day, you could do that, go and have the discussions and stuff. But now it's more like, you want anything else to pre-order. They go through this whole thing now. It's just like it's not the same anymore. I do miss those family-owned independent gaming stores. It's just a shame to see, because of the GST here in Australia, they all decided that they couldn't deal with it and would have been better off shutting down. So it was a sad day. So yeah, there's my story of the independent gaming stores back in the late 80s and early 90s. It was so much fun to interact with the owners. It was so cool back then. Until next time, guys, bye.